Hey, this is Brian Jones of Valhalla Academy in Frankfort, Kentucky, and I'm here with Robert Burge, Valhalla Academy, also of University of Kentucky Judo Club. He's a Nidan in Judo, he's a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, and we're going to talk about some issues that are sort of interrelated between Judo and Jiu Jitsu. Obviously, they come from the same parent art, they split off a little bit, and the two players of both sports are starting to interact a lot more. And we're going to kind of discuss some topics as they relate to that interaction. Thanks for being with me, Robert.
Thank you.
So the first thing that I want to bring up is pinning. Okay, pinning is a winning technique in judo. You can score ippon by osekomiwaza, which is basically holding somebody for 20-25 seconds, in a pin, like would be a mount or cross side in Jiu-Jitsu, which would be Tachishio Gatama or Yokoshio Gatama in Judo. And you can't win by a pin in Jiu-Jitsu. So a lot of times when Judo players come to Jiu-Jitsu class, they'll get into a pin and there seems to be some frustration as they try to get out, unsuccessfully a lot of times, and they feel like the person's stalling. So you want to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing you can mention is why did the two develop a difference in the pinning styles, and what effect has that had on the two sports? And Judo saw pinning in a sense as winning, as you said earlier. And what that does is it makes a situation a little more static, but it does have an impact in terms of, if you look at it between sports and martial arts, like what does the pin do in terms of a real martial art application versus a sport application? And I think Jiu Jitsu early on wanted to be very self-defense oriented. And so did Judo. Now, the difference is, I think, the changing of the positions. So if I have you in a hold down or positional control in Jiu-Jitsu, there is a tendency for maybe you will wait until I change a pin because I'm not going to get any more points. So I can't win from this position, but if I change my pin, I can get more points. And in that transition, you may have an opportunity to escape.
So the movement actually gives a person an opportunity to escape.
Whereas in a judo match, I'm not going to move unless you create the situation where I need to move. Okay? Now, is this martially effective? Well, in terms of judo, yes, because you can strike somebody. You can relentlessly strike somebody.
We see that in MMA all the time.
Exactly. And this is something you won't actually see a lot happen with people who train MMA, but who do train Jiu-Jitsu, because they will not lay in a pin because they know they've had the experience of being punched and et cetera, the strikes that come from that. So they're very used to getting out of pins. But in Jiu-Jitsu, I think that's a sort of a lost or overlooked aspect of the Jiu-Jitsu element. Now, if you want to see a deficit, if you want to see a way a sport has caused a deficit in Judo, it's as simple as letting someone take the back. And if I were to tell anybody in Jiu-Jitsu, I would say you should be able to get out of any pin at any time. And if you were studying Judo, I would tell you, never let somebody take your back, because they are both horrible ideas from a self-defense position, mindset.
So you think that the rule systems of Judo as a sport and Jiu-Jitsu as a sport have sort of led to these, tendencies of people to act, whereas, let's say in Judo, you have the pin, so the burden is on the pinned person to move. I mean, the person on top has the initiative, whereas in Jiu-Jitsu, it seems like the burden is on the guy on top to do something else.
Yeah, that is true. And there's actual some evidence that, you know, the reason there's a 25-second time limit in judo for pins is because statistically, not always, but most of the time, if a person cannot escape a pin in 25 seconds, they cannot escape a pin, which means you, in a real fight, would have lost.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know,
yeah, fights are not long things. I mean, they're over quickly, fast and furious. 30 seconds, 1 minute's a long fight, you know.
and there's also a difference in the way you might end up in a pin in judo and the way you might end up in a pin in jiu-jitsu. And I could give you an example would be if you and I were started from our knees like this, and you pull me into your guard. Okay, now I have a problem because I have to pass your guard. And let's say it is possible that, let's just assume I pass it, I get you in a pin. Now, if this were a self-defense situation, maybe you'll tuck this arm in here and won't give it to me. Maybe I'll start punching you in the stomach, and you will. I don't know. All right? The second scenario is you put me in the guard. I have a problem because you may be very good from your back, and you might actually beat me here. You could, you know, break my arm, a choke, whatever. So I may not get past your guard here. Okay, so it's a burden in a jiu-jitsu situation for me to get into a pin. But now if we start with the judo position, all right, so we can start from, so if we're in a gi situation, you know, like a throw. So now, this was not a burden for me to get you in this position. So, pinning is important in judo because from a clinch, no matter how it happens, the pin is there.
So you're saying that a lot of the judo techniques, they'll flow directly into the pin.
Exactly.
Essentially, you do a makikomi from the throw, seamlessly transition into the ground.
That's right.
As opposed to having to work your way into
Right.
it. Okay,
Right.
so you kind of bypass the guard there.
Right.
So, what advice? What advice would you have as far as you know, how can because most of the people that I have as my audience are going to be jiu-jitsu practitioners, a lot of judoka out there as well. But if we wanted to take something from judo and put it in to make the person's game better for jiu-jitsu, what would that be? How could you train that?
Well, you would need to, you know, start from, is it going to be sport or self-defense or a mixture of both? Because we could roll these mats up and put them up against the wall, and every class would be on this floor. And I can tell you your judo in your club would improve a whole lot, all right? If you leave the mats down, if I throw you with a certain throw, actually, I may throw you onto my back, and then although I've thrown you, I'm submitted. So
it's the over rotation that you see in the competitions because they've already won the match. They're not concerned with after Ippon control
right.
of the person.
So you start to equate your training environment with what's really happening, but the mat is always a constant. In the UFC, whatever, all these throws happen on a mat. And so throws are very much handicapped in terms of how martially effective they are.
Yeah, you can see what happens when somebody gets kicked in the face, punched in the face, elbowed in the face, they get their arm broken. But when somebody gets thrown, it's on a mat. It's
Right.
not on the pavement.
Right.
You see somebody get thrown on the pavement and split their head open like a melon.
It's right.
I mean, yeah, I agree 100%. I think that you got a good point there with the throws not getting their fair due, I guess.
And like if you can make a debate versus the gi versus no gi, I think you could make a debate the mat versus the no mat. And of course, a sport like that would never be sanctioned.
Just for the record, I don't want to train judo on no mat.
And so,
if you do that, I won't be a participant, but I might watch it. Oh, anyway, this has been Brian Jones from Valhalla Academy, Robert Burge. I really appreciate it. Thanks for coming out. Train hard, train smart, and train often. We'll see you next time.